Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor and I'm on coffee number 2. This is the Starbucks, what is it called? The House Blend. It's good. Look at Fred Rispoli, just got notice of filing of SEC versus Ripple and my heart skipped a beat, but don't worry, no ruling just yet. It was Ripple's notice to Judge Torres of the Binance decision last week. This guy says, when are you expecting the ruling to come in? I expected around June 20th, but apparently delay again. Fred Rispoli, who is an attorney, says July 31st, although I could see her doing July 13th to be poetic. We're getting close, folks. This guy's directly over the target. He only left one thing out, and that is that Joe Biden needs to tell Elizabeth Warren to piss off. But he got this part right.
Hey guys, it is Tuesday night, and I have one message for Joe Biden. If you're serious about trying to get the crypto vote behind you, I think there's one thing you can do that might convince us to come back. Get rid of Gary Gensler. If you get rid of Gary Gensler, I think that sends a message to everybody that maybe you were serious about supporting crypto people. Otherwise, you're against us. Thanks.
I think at this point you're going to have to fire Gary Gensler, and you're going to have to also fire all of Elizabeth Warren's operatives in there. Now this is interesting. French Hill's saying he thinks Trump would support Fit 21, but Ryan Selkis, and we don't have to play the video, Ryan Selkis is saying something I didn't know. He says, I heard different, Representative Hill. The president should speak for the president, and this bill is terrible for innovation in America and only gains support from industry as a messaging bill, not close to the final product. Okay, well, I can go along with that. All right, now, Mike Novogratz, now think about this for a minute. Mike Novogratz, think about all that Joe Biden, Gary Gensler, and Senator Warren have done to try to kill crypto. For over 3 years, they've been actively trying to kill crypto, but if you really think about it, Mike Novogratz they haven't come after him. I could throw out a few things that they might want to go look at him about, but they, of course, he was Gary Gensler's buddy over at Goldman Sachs in Hong Kong back in the day. So I think he's in the protected class. But Mike Novogratz, after everything that the people in crypto have been through and how these guys have come after, he thinks that it doesn't really matter who gets in office. What kind of this is someone that's already made their money, and make no mistake, not made their money because they're some genius, but made their money because they have information that you and I don't get to have when they make their investment decisions.
As a guy in the crypto business, one of the things that's been fascinating is to see former President Trump come out quite publicly as an advocate for crypto regulation, and all sorts of things, even in the past couple months. Has that switched your view of him?
Get with the program, Get with the program. You're a businessman.
Oh, Mike.
I'm not a single issue voter, and I do fundamentally believe crypto should be bipartisan and needs to be bipartisan. We can't have one party that likes us and the other party that doesn't. And I would tell you that most Democrats, outside of Elizabeth Warren and a small group of people, are pretty pro-innovation and pro.
Well, then where the hell have they been to help stop Elizabeth Warren and Gary Gensler? They sat on the sidelines until recently. They've sat on the sidelines for over 3 years and haven't been vocal, haven't done anything. And now we're supposed to reward those a-holes? No.
And so it's been unbelievably frustrating. That said, that's all shifting. And you can, listen, no matter who wins the next election, we're going to get positive crypto legislation. I know that.
When you look at where things stand right...
So just roll the dice. Let's just roll the dice. And let's vote for these guys anyway, even though they screwed us for over 3 years. Let's vote for them anyway. And because trust me, they're going to pass good crypto legislation. Yeah.
With Bitcoin,
we don't have to listen to any more of that, Pat. That guy right there. If anybody needs to be looked at as this guy right here. Remember when he bet dimes to donuts that Bill Hinman, that the SEC was going to come out and say that, well, Ethereum was a security, but it's not now. And then just a handful of days later, they come out and say exactly that. And he was an Ethereum investor. You freaking kidding me? And then we've got this. This guy is look at the kind of numbers this guy's throwing around. He's saying being a whole coiner is going to be an enormous deal down the road. In other words, if you own just one Bitcoin.
I want to screw this call up.
And by the way, if they allow Bitcoin, and I do mean allow Bitcoin to live, then owning one coin will be like this guy says. I agree with that.
And your progeny are going to hate you if you knew about this and you didn't buy it. I mean, they're just going to absolutely hate you, and they're going to think you're a legend if you sacrificed and didn't buy that expensive car and bought a whole coin instead, because that whole coin is going to be worth $10 million. Not that far out, by the way. I don't think anybody's missed the boat. I mean, I think we're still very much in the early days, and it's going to 10x, and that's going to 10x again. So from an investing point of view, you don't want to miss something that's going to go up 100x and maybe 1,000x if you talk 15, 20 years out. And point one is going to be a meaningful amount to have. I mean, it's being a whole coiner is going to be an enormous deal in a few years. And so I don't think you missed the boat. It can come out of the blue. I mean, we all know how this thing happens. I mean, the thing that's so wild about this asset is the way that it can really move and move fast. And that's why I say, like the hedge funds that are short this stuff, they're about to have a deeply religious experience. I mean, they don't understand. They don't understand this can go up 50, 100, 150% in months. You're going to see those shorts are going to get covered so goddamn fast. I'm hard pressed to see how we're not at 100K by the end of calendar 2024. And I think this cycle takes us to 200 or 300K. I'm pretty angry about how I've seen my country go downhill. I mean, America was a great place post-World War II. I mean, it really was. When I compare the America of my youth.
Okay, you get the picture. Now, this is one of the more interesting clips that I've seen today. This is the father of Micah, Peter Kirstens, and Subjective Views found this clip of this guy. Listen to this.
House. And I'll now give you an anecdote. The very, very, very first meeting I had about blockchain was in the Financial Stability Board's Financial Innovation Network, and it was a meeting in the New York Fed in the basement of the New York Fed, a very austere building.
I didn't even know they had a basement. By the way, when I heard about the Federal Reserve basement, it immediately reminded me of the Pee Wee Herman clip where he was trying to find his bike in the basement. He was told by a fortune teller that his bike was in the basement of the Alamo, and he goes all the way to the Alamo in Texas, and they laugh at him and say, there's no basement in the Alamo. Well, apparently there's a basement in the Federal Reserve.
And on the one side of the room, there were central bankers, looking like central bankers look. And you can make your own picture as to what a central banker looks like. There's a few, or there's at least one in the room, and he doesn't look anything like a central banker. But they looked very much the piece. And on the other side, there were hoodie-wearing geniuses, lunatics, libertarians, blockchain folk.
Libertarians are lunatics, said the official of the European Commission.
I'm not saying that the libertarians were lunatics. I said there were lunatics and libertarians. And they sort of said, well, we're developing this blockchain and Bitcoin and what have you, and this is the demonstration that there is absolutely no need for central banks. This is the end of central banking, which I thought was quite an entertaining and interesting position to put forward, especially at the New York Fed, in a room full of central bankers. Clearly, the central bankers had no idea what these people were talking about. And clearly, these hoodie-wearing libertarians and lunatics had no idea what central banks did and why central banks are important. And if we didn't have central banks now, I'm sure that they will end up being created to control the risk. In the same way, will the DLT be important for competitiveness? If we didn't have financial market infrastructure now, imagine Jens walks into this office tomorrow and there's nothing there. An empty building, no computers, no nothing. And Jens's boss, assuming he has a boss, tells him, you have to build infrastructure. I am absolutely convinced that DLT will be a much bigger part of the technology stack Jens will use than he currently does. Because of course now they're sitting on huge amounts of legacy infrastructure, which is...
Let's hear that last part again.
Computers know nothing, and Jens's boss, assuming he has a boss, tells him, you have to build infrastructure. I am absolutely convinced that DLT will be a much bigger part of the technology stack Jens will use than he currently does. Because
when you hear DLT, do not think about Bitcoin. They are not referring to Bitcoin when they say DLT. You know what they are referring to, don't you? Things like the XRP ledger.
They're sitting on huge amounts of legacy infrastructure, which is working okay, so you're not going to throw it overboard. But if you have to start from a clean slate, I'm convinced that DLT would be a much, much bigger part of the technology stack.
Mm-hmm. If Bitcoin stays around, it's going to be because the powers that be allowed it to, not because it's some libertarian movement that's going to get rid of central banks. I've said this since I first got into this in 2013. I remember talking about it with my dad. The adults in the room have always been Ripple. The adults in the room have always known that you're going to work with the governments to get anything done. You're not going to somehow get rid of the government. Even if we all would love that to happen, not happening. Okay? And if Bitcoin ever became a real enough threat to guys like this guy, they would destroy it. And if you think they can't destroy Bitcoin in 1,000 different ways, you need to think again. Think exit ramps. Think tax code. It could be done easily. All you have to do is kill the incentive for anybody to own it. I mean, the only reason any of these people don't own Bitcoin, they would say they own Bitcoin because they want to be a libertarian and all that. But you take away the profit motive, or you kill the potential profits, and you kill Bitcoin. I don't care what anybody says. That's just a fact, Jack. That goes for any of these things. Now look at this. It also reminded me of the 4 Satoshis video, which makes you wonder if that meeting with the 4 Satoshis, I wonder if he had anybody from Homeland Security in that Federal Reserve basement. That'd be a good question to ask, wouldn't it? Let me make sure that I'm going to save this for the next video because I'm going over time. Now, what I want to talk about now is the root of all the evil, all of the corruption we've been going through, everything we've seen. We're also going to talk about Dr. Evil and DAIXRP.com. But the root of all the evil, we've seen government corruption. We've seen corruption in all the government agencies. Gary Gensler at ETHgate. We've seen everything. We've seen how these people they don't pay for their crimes. The elites get to do whatever they want, and they never pay for their crimes. We've seen that our country has been taken over by corruption. But the only way they get away with it is because of what I consider to be the root of all evil and the root of the corruption. And that's what we're going to talk about in DAIXRP. You got to get the root out. That's it. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that away we go.